My name is Salvatore Ranchetti. I'm an Italian guy. My role in Ferrero is Corporate Quality Director, so I take care of, as well as quality, also food safety. The scope of this speech is to share our practice in terms of how we centralize and standardize analytical response in the Ferrero world in a global industrial scenario. First of all, and this is the first idea I would like to share with you, is that we need to have a specific dress for each purpose. And it's the same in terms of quality management. I've worked in other international companies like Unilever, like Pepsi, and really the quality mentality and the overall quality idea that you apply to each specific business is depending on the history of the organization. So when I joined the Ferrero 7 years ago, I understood I needed to change my mind. I needed to reflect and apply different model in terms of quality management, because in each different company, you need a different solution. So obviously what I'm sharing here may not be directly applicable to other business, but it's one example on how we get organized in order to solve our analytical response needs. When we look at these figures, it's not just providing information on the business, but I see a lot of issues which are really pertinent to quality. As an example, if I see this growth, in my opinion, this is a higher risk profile versus a standard company. We are growing. Growing means we are building a new manufacturing location. We are installing operation in new countries like China. We are investing in new product categories where we are not confident in. This means higher risk. This means that we need to be very proactive in managing quality terms, because there is a higher risk than a very consolidated business. If you look at over 40,000 people, I look at over 100 different nationalities with the different cultures, with the different language. So our analytical methods needs to be translated in local languages, because who works in the laboratory in Russia or in China has a different language, has a different mentality, and we need to get used to all this multicultural and multi-language scenario. If you look 160 countries over where we sell our products, this means different legislation requirement, different standards. Yesterday, we got a request to get a phytosanitary certificate for Moldavia. And what does it mean for Moldavian sanitary authority, a phytosanitary for a chocolate products? It's not that easy to understand. So so large number of countries means that you need to get involved really in so many different issues and try to understand. 22 manufacturing locations for me means that you have a multiple production location for the same products. And as an example, we may have one product which is sold in one country, but the sourcing manufacturing location can be located in different countries. We have Kinder Pinguis sold in France, which is manufactured at the same time in Italy and in Germany, and both products are sold in the same country. If you buy a 4-pack or 8-pack pieces, these are coming from two different manufacturing locations, which means that you need to get consistent quality. If you want to get the same spreadable Nutella, you have 12 manufacturing locations. They need to make, by using the same recipe, by using different ingredients because are sourced in different countries, you need to get the same finished product. So this is the complexity which needs to be managed. And in the last 7 years, we built 7 factories, all of them outside Europe, which means that you need to transfer a lot of know-how from the domestic comfort European zone to the really worldwide scenario. And if I look at our main brands, what we are proud of is that none of these brands has the best-selling country in Italy. None of these, which are our 10 most famous brands, are now sold the most in Italy. We have Raffaello and Kinder Surprise in Russia, Mosher in Germany, Nutella in France, Tic Tac in USA. But this means that we need to adjust our mentality to the best-selling country. We need to being capable from an Italian company really to move and understand the local needs in other countries which are located very far with a different mentality and in a different industrial scenario. And obviously, the business is going more complex time after time. We depend on hazelnut. Ferrero is the largest buyer of hazelnut. Hazelnut are just sourced out of Turkey, which is not an easy country. It's in the middle between West and East world. There is a lot of religious conflicts over there. So we acquired the two major suppliers of hazelnut in order to make roots in our strategic raw material, as well as we are trying to purchase other companies in order to grow in the countries where there is a commercial barrier. But this means that now we need to face with a different, completely different and mature laboratory understanding how they perform analysis in a different company with different information system, with different habits, a completely different mentality. And now we are merging our products and we will make Ferrero Prolines in that company, in that manufacturing location. And the business run at a very faster speed than we can match the requirement and the needs, because of the understanding of the time to purchase new equipment and to merge analytical data and to merge analytical methods and convene on standardized methods takes more time than to marketing to decide that we launch a new product. But what is quality made of? An analytical response is required for all those 4 levels we have in mind. First of all, it's consumer safety. First is not to kill our consumer. Obviously, we want them really alive because they need to purchase more and more chocolate from Ferrero. So we need to keep them safe, and safe has a lot to do with analytical response. Then we have legal compliance. Sometimes food safety and legal compliance are overlapping, but basically there are a lot of differences between legal compliance and food safety because we have different legal limits even for consumer safety issue country by country because it was used because of commercial barrier or because there is a different point of view by scientists in the different countries. We know that limits between US and European on several tasks and several issues, what is banned in US is permitted in Europe and vice versa. Then product compliance, obviously we want Nutella to be spreadable in the same way always, so we need to be capable to measure our internal specification to make sure that our product, our raw materials, our packaging material are compliant to internal limits, and this is the majority of our task. But this is then like an iceberg, is the sea level. So for a consumer, all which is below the line is given. When you buy a product, you would not expect this to hurt you or not to be legal or not to be the same product you have already always eaten. So for a consumer, everything is eaten. They are just looking for getting a very good experience by using your product. So we go with the consumer satisfaction. And again, there are a lot of analytical response to make sure that your milk, the milk you are using, is premium quality versus what is standard quality available on the market. So we need to make sure that we can get an analytical response that demonstrates our superiority towards competitors in order to support the premium position that we have on the market in terms of pricing. So all 4 levels goes then into an analytical response need. And this is how we manage our quality system. Everything starts with the rules, procedures. Everything needs to be written. Then this is transferred in a quality plan. When we fix a quality plan, we fix key performance indicator for quality. Then we run audit across the entire value chain, starting from suppliers of raw material, packaging material, and surprises, till consumer complaints, how these are managed in each different business units. We manage critical issues which are not just managed on a local basis, but any critical issues is managed by central quality department. And finally, we issue quality report, the dashboard of quality, which goes to each specific direction in Ferrero. So the raw material department, packaging material department, surprise department, industrial department, supply chain, and each relevant business units, they got a quality dashboard. And 30% of the variable pay of each director is paid on achievement or not achievement of quality results based on KPI that has been fixed at the beginning of each fiscal year. While this is how we manage our quality system, then we go directly to a laboratory. And the laboratory means that we need to keep under control different things that require equipment, that require skilled people, that require fixed standards. And it's not really relevant to me whether we use very sophisticated equipment or we use just a sensory test. We have a large sensory test and panel because chocolate product is made by enjoyable products, a very fresh product that can be enjoyed by people, and very small difference in taste make a lot of difference in business results. So to me, all of this makes the analytical response we require. And this is how we have solved the problem to provide an analytical response in this complex scenario. We have a center of excellence. This center of excellence is based in Alba. It's our central laboratory. Jean-Pierre Studer is our global laboratory head. Jean-Pierre, may you stand up? He is our very expert laboratory head, working since 36 years in Ferrero. He manages our center of excellence, providing standard to the entire group. Then we have one local lab at each manufacturing site, which is strictly connected to the central laboratory. And this is how we are organized. So the role of a central lab, first of all, is to perform the analysis required by the Alba manufacturing location. For me, it's very important. You cannot be the expert in analytical response if you do not run thousands of analyses every day. If you do not live really the sense of urgency, if you do not really live the fact that something is waiting for an analytical response, that you have a truck that needs to be unloaded, and that you have pressure, and that you have a lot of work to do, so you really understand what is efficiency, what is efficacy in working in a laboratory. So it's very important for us to have this lab not on the moon, but in our main plant, the largest one we have, in order that we have a lot of samples. For any new laboratory needs, we can test multiple instruments which we installed by 3 different competitors, and we can compare which is the best one prior to define this is the equipment, this is the method we are using on a worldwide basis. And then we run a contract to get and acquire a lot of them. Obviously, this laboratory is ISO certified because we want to make sure that we get the best expertise on a central basis. Then we do not require each local laboratory to be accredited according to ISO 17025. It's not needed, but we have the capability to transfer all this know-how to each single laboratory. We run internally a global risk assessment for each raw material, packaging material, and finished product, semi-finished product. There is a team working with the food law, with the expert of that raw material, with the laboratory, and there is a food safety manager managing the risk for each raw material, packaging material, and finished product. And based on the risk assessment we perform, then we define a standardized lab method which is a method according to international organization, or is developed just for Ferrero based or on official methods, if not available. Then we issue a quality monitoring plan, which is a sampling plan which is valid for the entire world of Ferrero, which means that we use a SAP system to upload all sampling plan, the frequency, the method, and the limits which apply to each specific sensory and analytical method. Obviously, this goes with the central laboratory. Then we go to each of the local laboratory on a worldwide basis in order to make sure that we guarantee that local laboratories are performing according to standard procedure, and I will go in further details in one short time. And on the top of managing internal laboratories, we always have to choose between insourcing and outsourcing analytical response. As an example, if I take a nutritional table, which is printed on each label of our products, we define together how we solve this. Do we want to centralize this issue? Do we want to have one laboratory internally, externally? Which is the frequency? Which is where we take samples? It's the same recipe. Do we want to run analytical response for nutritional labeling for Nutella on a worldwide basis? Do we want to run it for each manufacturing location? Do we want to run for each selling country? Do we want an official certificate by an external laboratory? Do we want to have an internal certificate because it's not needed to have an official external? These are all the questions we always need to ask ourselves, sit on a table for each specific analytical data which is required. And if I go to local laboratory alignment, the first thing is that we discuss budget with them, we discuss the staffing, who is hired, which are the capability on a local basis. We perform training, and training means that someone is coming from China to Alba to get trained, and then we send someone from Alba to China for several months to support in case of need. We evaluate the investment which are needed because we want the same equipment, the same methodology, and we need to make sure that all plants are equipped with the laboratory equipments which are needed according to the change which are progressing, because we launch new products, because we develop a new production line, we increase laboratory needs, and we need to be strictly connected to the business in order to make sure that the laboratory stays behind. And if a manufacturing location is producing on Saturday or Sunday, we need to adapt and change time of presence in laboratory in order to make sure that we run according to the needs. And then obviously it's very important, and we have seen a few speeches, how data are entered into the system, how this information are transferred, how these are transparent and can be immediately read, and how it's possible to have a central calibration for one equipment and just send on fiber this calibration to the single and different equipments which are installed in the different manufacturing locations. So in order to make sure that with one central calibration we have all equipment lines. When you have one supplier providing the same raw material to different Ferrero plants, I cannot get the answer that one plant is rejecting, the other two are accepting the same stuff. And this is this is the results if you do not have a complete alignment. And obviously, it's very tricky for a supplier to make leverage on one inconsistent answer from a customer to question every time. Maybe you are not so sure. Maybe this is last time there was some misunderstanding. So you really need to be very consistent. Then we perform an audit plan. So every year we have fixed an audit plan based on result of previous year, but each manufacturing location has a laboratory. Each laboratory is audited once a year. We have an official checklist. The checklist has a scoring, and depending on the scoring, you get a good or not good result. And after the audit, which is announced, because it's internal, it's announced, then the plant gets a full report, and after they need to prepare an action plan. And the action plan is discussed, approved, and then the next year we got again an audit. We also run ring tests. Ring tests are made by commercial standards which are available on the market, as well as, because we have a very specific product, we also have internal preparation of sampling which are sent across all the geographies. And this is the way we try to manage laboratory. It's also sharing of people, having people in the central laboratory, sending them for a couple of years in China, as we did recently, in order to make sure that we do not create a monolith. This is a central quality, this is a local quality. We provide information direction, you have just to follow. It's rotating role. For 3 years, you stay in a central laboratory, you provide rules, then for 3 years, you apply rules, and maybe when you come back, you understand that rules need to be very clear, very precise, and you need to be more supportive in order really to make sure that the rules make sense. We also use external laboratories. It's very important to use external laboratories because in an internal laboratory, it's a closed work. You do not get all the understanding from the entire world. But there are pros and cons. Basically, our experience is that sometimes it's needed an independent response. With the local authorities, maybe you need an independent response. So depending on analytical data really that is needed, we may decide that this is done by external laboratory. And for each company, I presume it's very important to keep headcount as low as possible. So we are more flexible on cost, less flexible on headcount. So depending on business result, depending on the budget, we may decide, okay, let's open more to external analysis. And for several very specific analyses with equipment which goes in obsolescence quite soon, maybe using an external department which has a more efficient use of such equipment is better to use for very sophisticated analysis in external laboratory. At the same time, the time to get a response is very long by using an external laboratory. We have seen it's almost 3 times than the time to get an internal response. So obviously, we cannot go to external laboratory for routinary analysis which are linked to release of finished product. Then the cost is very high. Jean-Pierre tells me I'm cheap. Because anytime we perform analysis on an external basis, the cost is almost double than internal cost, all included. And the next issue is about global coverage. Because it's a global business, we need an external supplier capable to provide the same analytical response for all Ferrero manufacturing locations. So either in terms of logistic, sending samples, or laboratory footprint in the different geographies, but it's very difficult to find a global partner. We have, obviously, the main external laboratories working with us, but still there is a lot of inconsistency between the different methods. There are big international laboratories acquiring other companies. They now are bigger and bigger, but basically also for them it's not that easy, even if you change the name, to have the same analytical methods, the same response. And we see this very clearly because we test all of them. And obviously, it's a matter of privacy. Sometimes for new products, for competitor monitoring, it's because also of our culture, it's very difficult to send external samples and get external analysis. So we use external laboratory, but really the major part of our analytical response is still internal. This was the last chart from my side. I'm open. Myself and Jean-Pierre are available for any question you may have.